This is F.D.Recovery, where we interview addicts and alcoholics.
Our aim is that through this podcast, we might help you on your journey of recovery.
Thank you for listening.
Hello, this is F.D. Recovery. This is Frank, your host. And this is the weekly intention. So this week is going to be honesty. But before we dive into that, I want to recap on last week, which was humility. Seems like two H words that we're starting off with. So the humility piece, I want to recap and kind of see how it worked through the rest of the week, and that'll be the trend from here on out to see how that spiritual principle worked in my life. I've been really cognizant of it because I want to share with you guys on how that experience went. It actually showed up for me that Friday and that Saturday that week. I went to a meeting at a recovery home, and it wasn't necessarily my issue, but it came up within my support group that we were running the meeting, and some guy kind of felt dissed, and he had every right to feel what he was feeling. But I won't get into the specifics. But the reality is I was able to put my pride aside in dealing with him because I'm the quote unquote facilitator of that particular meeting. And it's not because I'm all that. It's because it just kind of got thrown in my lap due to circumstances and, well, frankly, nobody just wanting to show up. But so basically we would go in there with the guys and we talk recovery and answer questions, yada, yada. Well, in the midst of that, I'll put it this way, people that come and help some of those guys in there, they're faced with a daunting task, because I've been that person in the rehab, and it's a tough job, dealing, and I don't mean person like coming in, I mean I was that person in the rehab, sitting on that couch, listening to somebody come in, whether it be H&I, whether it be the alumni that graduated there. In this situation, I was kind of mutual, but being the facilitator, I still had to hear all parties out because there was a little bit of conflict between some of our service members that were going in there, and it was nothing big or major, anything like that. But I was able to, ground myself in that situation, and put a lot of God in it, right? And I kept praying through that whole situation about humility, keep me on this humility path, humble me. And it's really cool because I started this, and since I started this last week, I've been kind of just focusing on whatever spiritual principle I encounter or that I choose. And it was just coming up in unique ways. And it's kind of funny when you look at life in that spiritual space, and you choose things like humility, you'd be surprised on how much your pride gets challenged. So just recapping on those situations that came up, I was able to talk to both sides individually and kind of get everybody on the same page. And I suggested to each of them to reach out to each other, and I hope they did that. I'll give a further update on if they did, but I did what I was supposed to do in my part, and I was able to make amends because that certain situation, I didn't want to cause any harm in it, and I just made sure to clean my side of the street and make sure I didn't hurt anybody's feelings. Well, it's really just pride that we're all facing. So yeah, I was noticing that about the whole situation, and it was pretty cool to kind of take that approach on it. Um, there was really no aha moment in that, but it was just kind of cool that I could sit back and just feel my own pride come up and realize that I don't have to live in that space, that I'm able to make different choices today. I'm able to sit back and invite my higher power in and just try to make the best choice that'll be the most positive solution for the situation. And I was I was pretty surprised at the way it went down, and um And then later on the next day, I was able to help a brother out in need that opened up to me about some stuff that he was going through in his personal life. And even then, I felt the humility piece coming in, because when people come to you with problems, you're blessed, right? They come into you and seeking some relief in a sense, and seeking some sort of uh, not necessarily, I wouldn't say advice, but some sort of guidance. The worst vice is advice, and but seeking some experience from listening to your experience and just trying to draw from that on their end. And I was able to kind of see that, and I'm very, very fortunate to experience this life of recovery and bringing it, doing a cat of the recap on humility is just paramount. Today I today I realize, and I'm gonna practice it further, but that was just my experience with humility this week. So moving on to honesty. All right, let's see what AI overview. Honesty is the quality of being truthful, fair, and straightforward. It involves not lying, not stealing, or deceiving in any way. Imagine that. Not lying, that was my first thing, is a lie. Stealing, well, I stole everything. Deception, that was my biggest tool. Sorry for the background noise, guys. Um, yeah, deception was my biggest tool. It was my biggest tool for manipulation. And it says synonyms of honesty: integrity, sincerity, truthfulness, relatability, authentic, authenticity, and credibility. Yeah, those are all things that I never possessed at any time. I'd have glimpses of any of that, but to be truthful, it was never really a part of my reality, right? Um, the credibility part was, I had no credibility. I stole and robbed everything. Sorry, I'm using a different mic, so the sound is a little choppy. You can hear the background. Um, so yeah, the credibility piece is man, it's nobody. I had not one shred of credibility with anybody, right? Authentic. That was not part of any of this, right? Truthfulness. I didn't know that. I use the truth as a weapon most of the time, right? Um, I used it to manipulate people's view. Uh, I used it to harm them, and that's some stuff that I had to go through on my four step and just realize how manipulative I was. All right. So honesty is a tough one for me because I used it for manipulation so much. There was just so many times that I could look back in my relationships, and um, I would just use it. I'd use it as leverage. If I catch them slipping about a situation, I'd use their dishonesty to my advantage. I would use my um, I would just keep things from them, which is completely dishonest, but they would never find out because I was so cunning with some of my intricate lies that it was just full on manipulation. I ran across a letter that one of my ex, not one of them, I only have one ex-wife, but my ex-wife wrote, and I was still in the middle of one of my relapses or my addiction. And I remember reading it, and I can't, I'm paraphrasing, but I just remember parts in it, her just talking about me being domineering, and it's not love, it's just control. And I remember it hitting a certain type of way. Even when I was high, it cut deep, because there I was on another bender, and I'd never listened to her at that time. I've never listened to anybody in my relationships. I was just there to abuse you, really. Um, and fulfill my selfish needs. But just to kind of, I was at a point in my life where I was really starting to contemplate. There was some spiritual stuff happening. So when that was happening, there was like little peaks into the spiritual world where little god shots, if you want to call it. I would call it peaks into the spiritual world, because something was reaching into me, and I was trying to reach into it. And I look back now and I realize that was my higher power trying to send me on the path just so I could end up where I needed to be to get clean and sober. And that happened many times. Obviously, I didn't work a hard enough program each time. I would either get arrested or to rehab, 5 different rehabs, prison, jails, all these things that were desperately trying to keep me sober, never worked, right? So fast forwarding, and the reason I bring up all that is that dishonesty through it and the manipulation is because I remember just using honesty. Anytime I caught somebody slipping in a relationship or catch them, I would just arm it to the teeth, and I would just destroy their well-being, right? And I know everybody makes their own choices, but this is wreckage I've had to sit through and kind of work through. And in that honesty piece, when you first start getting honest with yourself, it comes in many waves, many waves, many layers, right? Waves. Um, like today, I'm starting to dig deeper, so the honesty is getting a little bit more in depth, because I scratched the surface in the beginning, but once I start peeling those layers away, it gets a little bit more philosophical, it gets a little bit more spiritual, and the connection with my higher power gets a little bit deeper, and I start seeing the errors of my ways a little bit more intensely. So when I do something shitty, it's not just, well, I gotta go move on. It's like, no, I have to do some inventory. I have to be honest about that inventory and get down to the nitty gritty. Where did I harm this person? Um, and to get that to that point and to do that is pure honesty. You just have to invite it in your life. Um, and to just set this forward as an intention for the week, because it's Monday and I'll be uploading this shortly, just so you guys can hear it. But just if you're with me and you hear this, uh, this is the intention for the week. Honesty. Um, and for me, what that means is obviously you don't want to run and go tell a stranger your fucking weird shit you did while you're shooting drugs or smoking or drinking. That's a no-brainer. You don't have to be honest to where it's gonna hurt you, but honest to yourself, right? That one I never knew. I never understood. I could never grasp. I had no clue I was in such deep denial about almost every aspect of my character, of my spiritual life, of every nook and cranny that I've ever thought about myself, the ego that I perceive myself, that lens. It was all just a sham, and I didn't realize it until the whole canopy came crashing down on my head, and it really took that desperation and that closing in for me to kind of see that leveling of pride that they talk about um initially, right? Because for me, the way it works is the way I get humble is I get beat, right? And that's when the honesty floods in, right? To get humble, God, there's a lot of honesty that comes flying through your view, and it gets overwhelming. But once you settle in the truth and you kind of open up to it, the spiritual joy that you could achieve, just like now talking about it, that sense of peace for me comes in, and I know my higher power got my back. Just talking about this and just being open and honest about my past and who I am and where I'm at, there's always room for improvement, right? I'm working on myself all the time. So if you're listening to this and you're in recovery, even if you're not in recovery and you're just listening to this, I urge you, man, try to set some goals up behind honesty this week. See how honesty is reflecting in your life, right? Um, you got to also have a support group. You just don't go and tell your wife all the fucked up shit you're doing, right? You have to have a sponsor support group you can walk through, right? Because when you do a step 9, it mentions and I'm paraphrasing, but to injure them or others, right? You don't have a right to be laying all this stuff on someone and being honest and throwing up on them, because you need to talk to your support group first to see if it's going to harm them or harm you. You're part of that equation too, right? So the reason you work through this and do the steps and get to that place of honesty, but you do it with the sponsor. Um, Eventually, I like today I can do a lot of these stuff on my own through inventory work, but it takes getting those tools down and getting to a place where you have these spiritual things right at your side. Being able to just throw down an inventory and say, hey, this is why I'm acting this way, because I'm hurt. So and so said this at work, and why did it piss me off? Well, because my pride got in the way. Because Joe Blow got the promotion and I didn't. And I'm using just random examples, but you get the picture. When you get to those points in your life where you're fucking frustrated and and you're starting to blame other people, you're fucking letting it on it, you're giving it to them in your head, and you're like, fuck you, everybody's fault. You got that blame thrower just fucking torching. I know you know what I mean. If you're in recovery, you know exactly what I mean. And even if you're not, I'm sure you could relate. But it's when you put the way you put that stuff down, at least the way I found is you invite honesty into your life. Because truthfully, that humility piece that we were working on last week, it's nowhere without honesty. Those kind of come hand in hand. But this week, I will be working on honesty. I will be seeing how it affects me in my daily life. And I urge you, man, play along with me with this. If you're listening to this, practice this principle in your life. Remember, it's a weekly intention, so we're just putting it forward out into this world. Whatever you believe in, whether God, Allah, um, Buddha, whatever it is, man, you connect to that spiritual principle of honesty, and you lean on your support group and you ask your higher power to come into your life. I assure you, you'll be amazed about the changes and some of the situations that arise. This is the law of attraction, man. That if you're honest with yourself and you're completely open with your intentions and your inventory and your motives, most of all, you motives you got when it comes to motive, why you're doing something, most people just block it out, and this is my experiences, I just block out all the ill shit that I'm really doing it for, and completely rationalize my way to this grand lie where I'm like, yeah, it's because I'm a good person, I just did this to help this person. But really it was for my self gain. Really it was for my advancement, whether in a job, whether in a relationship, whether to get what I want in that relationship, whether it be with my wife, um, talking shit, for whatever reason, because I've been up all day working and putting hours in, and I come home and be shitty to her, right? I gotta ask myself, why am I being like that? Where's the honesty in this? I'm being a jerk, right? And getting to that honest point in your life where you're like, okay, what happened today? Who did I fuck over? Who did I piss off? Who pissed me off? And getting to those inventory pieces and checking your motives is super important, man. Um, Again, this is FD Recovery, man. I hope you guys tune in. I hope you guys hear what I have to say. It's nothing but love on this end. Again, F.D. Recovery. The weekly intention is honesty. I'm out, guys. Peace.
Thank you for tuning in to F.D. Recovery. A reminder, be kind to yourself on this journey of recovery. Also, call your sponsor, get connected to local support groups, and for one day at a time, stay clean and sober.